Yeah, listen, I get it. Josh Allen, scores 40 on the Ravens. He's playing the position at a higher level than ever. The Lions score 40 on the Ravens, and they officially don't miss Ben Johnson anymore. They're back. The Chiefs score 40 on the Ravens. It's like, the Ravens must be bad. But that's not the story. Listen, I want to have an actual adult conversation about how Lamar Jackson is discussed and why I think he's discussed as such. Okay? So, Dan, see if I can sell you on this. Because there is a bit of the enemy of my enemy is my friend here, which is when Lamar was coming out of school, while Bill Polian got the face of it because he said he should be a wide receiver or whatever, the loudest and most ardent Lamar Jackson skeptics, most of them were bad actors. I'm not calling Bill Polian that. They were folks that people in my position in the media, young, usually pretty liberal, myself, pretty, I think, evolved on a lot of social issues, really didn't like those folks. They didn't want, and they were like, and they found their opinions to be abhorrent and not really just about football. And I believe to my core that because of that, and because the biggest Lamar critics early on were just bad folks, there has been an overcorrection where 8 years later, nobody seems to want to acknowledge what is so patently obvious year after year after year, which is he is an all-time legendary first ballot Hall of Fame MVP who plays his absolute worst football in the absolute biggest games. There is a name for that in sports. It's called getting tight if we want to be nice, choking if we want to be mean. We have no problem saying it about Aaron Judge. We have no problem saying it about James Harden. We had no problem saying it about Peyton Manning. But because Lamar, for some reason or another, we are still fighting this old battle of can he be a quarterback? Folks don't want to cede any ground. And then I have to listen to even an overcorrection, which is actually, if you remove running, he's one of the best players ever. Look at his passer rating, as if that isn't influenced by the defense being afraid of him being able to run because he's so dynamic. We have to pretend as if it's not a fact that in the last 30 games, he's had 3 multi-turnover games. The AFC title game against the Chiefs, the divisional round against the Chiefs, and against the Bills, and Sunday against the Chiefs. Then in the last 30 games, he's thrown 7 total picks, which is remarkable. 4 of which were regular season picks that hit his receiver in the hands, and the other 3 were just awful, awful decisions that were in the AFC title game, the divisional round game, and Sunday against the Chiefs. Those games, all of which he also had an inexplicable fumble. It's patronizing to him to pretend like this must be a coincidence when it obviously is not.
Nick laid it out tremendously well. I guess what muddies the water a little bit is all the individual achievements and accolades that Lamar Jackson has stacked. Won a Heisman Trophy, multiple MVPs in the NFL. At no level, including high school, has Lamar Jackson ever quarterbacked a championship team. Dating back to Boynton Beach. He has never been a part of a championship team, not an ACC
same with Harden and Peyton Manning.
Not an ACC champion.
I don't know if Tennessee ever won the SEC, and I don't know if Arizona State ever won the Pac-10 or Pac-12 conference tournament, but I know that I don't get why it's fair for other guys. Like James Harden has more first-team All-NBAs than Steph Curry. James Harden has the statistical profile of a top 15 all-time player, and he is barred from that conversation correctly because year after year after year, he comes up short in the biggest spot. Peyton, when they won the Super Bowl in Indy, he didn't get over his big game stuff. He had 3 touchdowns, 7 picks on that playoff run. Bill Simmons did a whole Peyton Manning face thing. And then I listened to the commentary after the Chiefs game Sunday, and there's 8 seconds on the fact that they're up 7-3. The Chiefs aren't humming yet. They have the ball at midfield. And for the first time in the regular season in 2 years, Lamar just throws a what the hell was that? Off his back foot, first down interception. And everyone's like, no, the defense was just too injured. The whole world picked the Ravens going into that game with the defense being injured. That game did not flip because Marlon Humphrey went out. Marlon Humphrey went out when they were already down 17. That game didn't flip because Roquan Smith got hurt. That game flipped because Lamar had 2 first-half turnovers.
While the Chiefs were frustrated on offense, the Chiefs were in a vulnerable position. The place that I would push back on you, I believe your critique is fair and accurate before the season and based on those playoff games. You're making this a big game when you can if you want, but this doesn't count. Like, it's 2 1-2 teams. This is not an AFC championship game. He had a bad game. You can make it a big game if you want, but it was a game between 2 1-2 teams. He had a bad game.
Against Dan, is it a game against a team that he called, quote, his kryptonite? Yes. Was it a game against a player in Patrick Mahomes that he said a few years ago, no, I don't like playing him? Is it a game against a team that he has now played 7 times, lost 6 to, and is it a game? Is he staring across the field?
But Nick, you know that the Chiefs defend him differently than every team in the league. You know that they have a spotter and they have a way. They've got a solve on Lamar Jackson that no other team has. Their defense can stifle him. But you're just making an arbitrary game 4 of the season count as much as one of the playoff games because he had a bad game.
No. Hold on. I'm not doing that. What I am saying is that when there's a big 3 quarterbacking in the NFL at this point. Patrick, Lamar, and Josh. Burrow's out because he's out. And when Lamar has consistently played, not every single game, but consistently played his worst ball against one of those other 2 guys, particularly against Patrick, we can't act like that's coincidental.
Nick, it's not coincidental that the Chiefs have a solve for him. They put a spotter on him, and they can slow him.
Here's my answer to that. I don't buy that. I do not buy that. Are the Chiefs games not on film? Nobody else can watch what the Chiefs do? Everybody has tried for a decade to solve Lamar Jackson. And the way to solve Lamar Jackson is have Lamar feel like this is a huge spot. That's how you, like, and so we're not going to pretend like when Brady and like one of the most famous Brady Manning games ever was a regular season game.
But Nick,
when Belichick went for the 4th down.
You have him losing to Josh Allen in game 1. That wasn't his fault.
No. I'm not putting that on him at all. But
you're saying the games against Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. The last one he had against Josh Allen, he had him beat.
Let me also provide some more stats because it's not just the Chiefs. He has 5 losses in the playoffs. Here are the Ravens' point totals in these games. In Lamar's playoff debut, they scored 17 points. They lost to the Chargers. 12 points against the Titans. 3 points against the Bills, 17 points against the Cincinnati Bengals, 10 points against the Kansas City Chiefs. When the opponent scores more than 20 points in the playoffs, Lamar Jackson does not win those games historically.
Hold on. So I think we might be leaving the Bengals one. I think was Huntley playing, just to be fair, but I think we're also leaving one out. What is true is this: in 4 of his 5 years in the postseason, the single fewest points the Ravens scored all year was in their playoff game. They've played the Chiefs in the playoffs once. It's not that the Chiefs have a solve for him. Like, I don't, and you can, and no, I want to be very clear. I was not putting game 1 on Lamar, and I think game 1 of the season was a game he played really well in, and that was a game where the defense and Derrick Henry's fumble let him down. So to be clear, what I do, I just don't, the bigger question I have is, why on earth am I and seemingly Shannon Sharp on an island on this? Why is it is such a patronizing protectionism? And I've got to deal with people I really like and respect. We joke, but I adore Mina Kimes as a human being and have massive respect for her football knowledge. Massive respect. I went on her pod this offseason and I referenced the Ravens playoff game, and she just said, like, matter-of-factly, Lamar was not bad in that game. He had 4 turnovers all year, 2 in the first half of the playoff game they lost. In what now? Did he rally at the end? Did he give them a chance to come back? Sure. But he dug that hole. Like, if we were all just nice and kind and gentle in sports media about everyone, so be it. But that's not how it is. And so it feels to me like there is, and people also do this thing. They're like, well, all these Bills and Ravens are these all-time team stats, and Josh and Lamar are these all-time player stats, but haven't made a Super Bowl. That's actually a Patrick Mahomes compliment. But that's true for the Bills. The Bills 4 times got blocked in the playoffs by Mahomes. The Ravens, it's once. And to kind of add to the other point, Dan, a week 4 regular season game against the defining player of the league when both of your teams are teetering on must-win adjacent territory and you have your worst regular season game in 2 years, I'm not going to call that a coincidence.
Is your number one theory on this that people are afraid to criticize him because to criticize him might get you called racist? Like, what is your number one theory?
No, it's not. No. I do not think, I want to make it very clear. I think it's that all of the racists in sports media, or really, they're not even really in sports media, that dabble in sports were anti-Lamar. All of them were. And let me again be very clear on what I'm saying. Everyone who was anti-Lamar in the beginning was not racist, but all the racists were anti-Lamar. And because of that, the anti-racists, of which I consider myself one, and I think a lot of my young media colleagues consider themselves one, overcorrected and now feel like I don't want to give an inch. It's that meme when the worst person in the world makes a good point. And you're like, no, I don't want at all for those folks to have any type of win, which I actually empathize with. And I might actually, if I wasn't felt so steady on my ground of like, okay, if folks want to call me an anti-black racist, like, you can go ahead and try, but I just think, I don't think that's going to play. So maybe I'm not, maybe I'm less anxious about it, that I can just call it for what I see it, which is he's James Harden of the NFL. And that guy's going to be first ballot Hall of Famer, one of the most unique players ever. But why do we have to pretend it's bad luck? That's all I'm saying. Why do we have to pretend that it's surprising that happened? It wasn't.
He's the host of FS1's First Things First. I suggest that you listen to What's Right with Nick Wright. He does that with his son. You can watch him on First Things First, weekdays at 3 p.m. on FS1. Did you think he quit? Because I don't think a lot of quarterbacks in that situation, people would leap to the conclusion that he quit at the end of the third quarter when he left the game. But a lot of people did jump to the conclusion thinking that Lamar Jackson quit at the end of that game.
What I thought it was weird that he wasn't seemingly getting treatment, and then he had seemingly tied around his hamstring just a couple Gatorade towels. I thought that was weird. I also think that right after the game, Harbaugh was like, I don't know if he could have gone back in. Then the next day, he was like, he definitively couldn't have gone back in. And then yesterday, the Baltimore Sun, none of like the, national reporters, the Baltimore Sun's like, oh, he's out for Houston and it could be 2 to 3 weeks. I do not deny at all, or I do not doubt, I should say, that Lamar hurt his hamstring in that game. If you're asking my honest opinion of if it were tied, do I think he would have kept playing? Yeah, probably. Do I think, though, that would have been, like, that's totally reasonable? If it's like, I could play through this, but it might make it worse, but we're down 17, and also we're playing the Chiefs, so we lost as soon as we got off the bus. I probably should get healthy. I think that would be totally legitimate.